Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everyone. It's Lydia with the Oneness Junkie podcast and YouTube channel. And today I'm excited to introduce you to our next guest. I'm sitting here with Reverend Bill Marchiony. Hi, Reverend Bill.
Hey, Lydia, it's wonderful to be here with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, well, when I met you about a year or two ago and learned about all the amazing things you're doing to help raise the vibration of the planet and just have a higher level of consciousness for people, I definitely wanted to highlight you and all that you're doing on the Oneness Junkie podcast. So here we are.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
To get started, let me just ask you, where are you in the world so everybody will know?
I am physically located just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and have been here since, I think, the late 90s.
Okay.
Moved here for a job in the 1980s on 2 hours' notice. Met my wife here, so we boomeranged back after being on the road for a little while. And so, yeah, that's me in the Philly area.
Oh my goodness, 2 hours notice. That's amazing that you can turn on a dime like that.
Well, I was 25, so more likely then than now.
I was going to say, do you still turn on a dime like that?
I do, but I'm not moving. There's too much stuff. There's just way too much stuff in the house here.
Awesome. Oh gosh, I totally understand that. All right, so let's get started. I want, as I always do, I ask my guests to give us some background. Like if you grew up traditional religion or whatever, give us some background about you. We want to get to know you, and then we're going to learn in the next couple of minutes what is it that you're doing in the world and all the things you're doing to contribute to that higher consciousness. So introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're all about.
I get to give you my backstory, which is always fun. So I was raised Protestant. Went to Sunday school. My mom was a Sunday school teacher, and went all the way through confirmation classes. Learned all the stuff that they wanted to teach me about the Bible. And 2 weeks before confirmation, I realized that I didn't believe it. And the part that mostly I didn't believe was that Jesus was the only Son of God. I was like, this can't be that exclusive. There's got to be something else going on here. And I told my parents I didn't feel comfortable standing up in front of the congregation and saying I believed that stuff. And my parents, completely out of character, said, oh, okay. And I never had to go to church or Sunday school again. And it's like, who are those pod people looking like my parents? Like, why did I get off the hook like that? And I found myself in a spiritual desert. So I didn't have a church. I didn't believe in the church that I'd been brought up in, didn't have something else. And went along being an agnostic. My daughter considers herself an agnostic now, and we've decided that an agnostic is an atheist with a commitment issue. So I was an agnostic for the longest time. When I moved to Philadelphia and I met my wife, she had been brought up Jewish and pushed away from that and was following a guru for a while and knew a little bit about the science of mind. And we were not religious or spiritual together for a while. We got married by a Unitarian minister because I was sort of the common ground there. When our daughter was born, we decided we wanted to have some sort of a spiritual, religious context for her to grow up in, something that she could push against the way that we had. So we joined a Unitarian church. We were living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the time. And it was wonderful, loved the people, loved the hymns, got together every Sunday, and it was lovely. Realized a few years in, they hadn't talked about God very much. And then a friend of mine said, you should go to this religious science church. So we went, and it's like, oh my God. These people think and believe the same thing that I've believed since before I was 12. They have songs, they have books, they have classes, they talk about it. This is wonderful. And we jumped in and was a member of several New Thought communities. Found myself studying up as a practitioner and then later as a minister. somebody said, you should be a teen advisor. I said, I don't like teenagers. So, of course, I then became a teen advisor. And we started a teen region in the Northeast, and it grew to like 150 participants from Washington, D.C. to Providence, Rhode Island. Which was, just wonderful. It was the teens who started calling me Reverend Bill, and it's like, nah, I'm not going to be a minister. And then, of course, now I'm a minister. And along the way, founded by Spiritual Community, which is New Thought Philadelphia, got involved in the affiliated New Thought Network, where I'm now the administrator, and got introduced into the International New Thought Alliance, where I'm now the Chief Technology Officer and have been Congress co-chair. So I keep on jumping in and doing more and more of these things. And along the way, I discovered that my mother and her family, who were immigrants, they came to the United States in 1939 from Germany. It turns out one of the reasons they needed to leave Germany is because when they were there, they were Jewish. It was a mixed family, Jewish and Christian. So my Sunday school teaching mom actually grew up Jewish.
Wow.
And since my mom was Jewish, that makes me Jewish. So now
Right.
I have this claim to Judaism and to Christianity and to New Thought. So I'm sort of an all of the above and get to reinvent the story as it applies to me. And that's kind of where I am now. My whole mission has been this New Thought teaching of oneness is life-changing and world-transforming, and I think there are people who are looking for it. So what I want to do is hoist that light up as high as possible so people who are looking for it can find it.
Well, you're on the right podcast. So that's interesting. You really embody oneness with all your different backgrounds, right? Like that whole symbol coexist, and it has all the different religious symbols. That's neat. So before we started recording, you asked me how I got introduced into oneness. When do you remember like hearing that word for the first time, and what did it mean to you?
Somebody gave me a Louise Hay greeting card, and this was sometime in the 80s before I found the teaching itself. And it's like that resonated with me, and it made a lot of sense. I didn't know who Louise Hay was. I didn't know what any of the rest of it meant. When I got into this, it wasn't about oneness. It was through religious science, and the thing that was really powerful there was the prayer technique, which is really what I focused on, about using that oneness and our connection with the oneness to create a new experience. So that's how I got into it, and then people started using the term oneness around me. So it's more of a side effect than a primary. But the other thing that's really amazing is the first time I went to an INTA Congress, the International New Thought Alliance, but my friend who was there said, yeah, people who understand one branch of New Thought think that all the rest of them are just completely different. And anybody who understands two of them realizes that we're all the same with slight differences in flavor.
Yeah, and focus and like what they do, like the prayer.
Yeah, I was at a thing that was being run by a Unity leader, and there were religious science people there and Unity people there and Christian science people there, and he looked at the room and he says, okay, you guys think you're all different, but you're not. And here's the difference, okay? Religious science has really good music, and Unity has Jesus Christ.
That's funny. Hey, would you mind, just for people to get an exposure of what they call the treatments, would you explain that? First of all, explain what a treatment is and why it's called that, just because I think it's an interesting take on religious science, right?
Oh, it is. And that's one of the things that religious science brings to the table is spiritual mind treatment. And I actually probably would have gotten myself thrown out of the religious science church if I hadn't left voluntarily, just because I thought that the term spiritual mind treatment was a little bit onerous. So in fact, one of my passions has been relabeling it, it's the same thing I call practical prayer. And it's practical prayer for real results. And when we get to the part where I start hawking my stuff, one of them is a book called Practical Prayer for Real Results, it's the book that I wish that somebody had given me. So it explains how the process works. It's spiritual mind treatment or practical prayer. They're exactly the same thing, using slightly different language. And it has 40 sample prayers in it on different topics. So you can choose one that's kind of close to yours, and there's a blank line where you can fill in your own stuff. But the idea of practical prayer or spiritual mind treatment is that you take all the stuff that's good about an affirmation, where you're claiming something: I am lovable, I am prosperous, I am healthy, I am comfortable, I am having my perfect loving relationship. And those work, and they work beautifully. And the entire self-help movement is made on based on that. I can say these affirmations and create something new in my life. And they work right up until they stop working. And the reason they stop working is, let's go back to the source material. And I love the Bible, especially the New Testament and the stuff that's in red letters, the stuff that Jesus actually said, because that stuff, as far as I can tell, is dead on accurate. And then the stuff that people said Jesus meant, maybe not so much. And the other stories are sometimes interesting and maybe they're applicable. But he said, as you believe, so it is done. It's all about belief. So what's happening with my affirmation is when I say I am prosperous, if I don't have a belief that I can't be prosperous, then it opens up the channel, and that infinite creative power that creates everything, the one, creates an experience of prosperity for me. Just no problem. If, on the other hand, I have a belief that I am somehow impoverished and I'm doomed to poverty and I never am going to have enough, and it could be because I learned that as a kid, my family never has money, or nobody in our family has ever had money, or we always have problems with credit cards, or wherever those beliefs came from, those beliefs are operative. So when I say I am prosperous, the little voice in the back of my head says, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not prosperous. The first of the month is coming up. There's not enough to pay the rent. Furthermore, the credit cards are overdrawn. You're familiar with that little voice. We all have our own version of that little voice. So that little voice is telling us what we actually believe. And what a spiritual mind treatment or a practical prayer will do is let us deal with that disbelief. And the way that we do it is, instead of starting with the affirmation, we start understanding what the prayer is going to be about. And then we turn our attention to God, or the divine, or the infinite, or nature, or the creator, or the Big Bang, or whatever we think has been sharing itself as creation since the beginning of time. Get the biggest picture that we can about that, especially as it applies to whatever we're going to be doing our prayer for. And we realize that since that one infinite creative power created everything, it created me too. So all of that love, all of that prosperity, all of that possibility that exists in the universe exists for me. So what I'm doing there is I'm putting myself on the A-team. This is not me sitting down here saying, I hope I have enough money to pay the rent. This is me saying, the power that creates universes has created me, and I'm using that same power to claim that there is plenty for my mortgage. And the thought that God has enough to create a galaxy but can't come up with the money for my rent is just preposterous. Right. So from that spiritual perspective, I then make my claim: I am prosperous. I have plenty of money to spend and to share and to save for the rent, for the loving relationship, for the health and comfort and surgical outcomes, or whatever we're praying for. So we're taking that same affirmation practice, but we're putting it into a spiritual context where we can really bring some divine power to it. And that's a spiritual mind treatment. It's also a practical prayer. The next step is to go into gratitude, to be grateful for the good, wherever we're going to be grateful. It doesn't matter what you're grateful for. I'm grateful for the awareness of the creative process. I'm grateful for the good that's showing up in my life. I'm grateful to remember how to do this practical prayer technique. We go to gratitude, and then we release it. We let go of our attachment. And that's the prayer, and it's in 5 steps. Except if we do the affirmation, and that little voice comes along and says, not going to happen. I am prosperous. I have plenty of money to pay the rent. No, you don't. Look what happened last month. When you hear that voice is telling you what you believe. And since you now know what you believe and that your belief is at odds with what you want to experience, you go back into another step. You do a refutation step. The thought that this infinite creative power doesn't have enough to cover the rent is preposterous. It is an infinite creative power. There is plenty for me to live in prosperity and harmony with plenty of money to spend, to share, and to save. And we keep going through that process. When we get a kickback, we do the refutation, where we say this is a false belief that's not true, and we repeat our affirmation. And as soon as we believe it, we go into the gratitude step. And one of 2 things will happen in a properly executed spiritual mind treatment or practical prayer. If we keep on getting resistance, if we keep on having that, no, it's not going to be possible, either we modify the prayer, because we're going to get what we believe rather than what we claim, or we can rent a consciousness. We can call a practitioner who's been trained to do prayer on behalf of other people. Because when you come to me and you do prayer because you want to have a relationship or a job, I'm not carrying your baggage. I didn't learn the stuff that you learned as a kid. Yeah, it's completely possible for you to have that fabulous job. And oh, by the way, congratulations on your new fabulous job. and the process works. So that, and you asked me, it was a loaded question because this is one of my passions. I mean, I took spiritual mind treatment.
It was a good segue. It was a great segue.
I took spiritual mind treatment and I rebranded it as practical prayer. And the reason for that is I would go to religious science churches and I would hear a couple of long-timers having a conversation, at coffee hour with a newbie listening over their shoulder. And one of them would say, oh, I was having such an issue and I went to a practitioner, I got a spiritual mind treatment and I manifested a demonstration. And their friend would say, oh, that's wonderful. And the newbie would say, what the hell are they talking about? And now, same thing. Oh, I was having an issue, so I went to one of the prayer professionals. I had them do a practical prayer, and I got a result. And you don't need anybody to translate that. So it's, again, about making that same creative process available to more people.
Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of things coming out in conversation that are just new ways of representing that. Like the next podcast, not on this channel, but on my wellness channel, after you today is quantum therapy. And so basically that person focuses on you from anywhere in the world and addresses the things that you want to block, unblock or clear or heal, or create. And then it's because they don't have what you just said. They don't have the blocks. They don't have the issues. They can manifest it like almost through dialogue, almost for you. And then she gets some kind of a feedback mechanism to help you understand, what was cleared. And
Sure.
So it's really kind of the same. I mean, I don't know what religious science does or how they do do they have to physically be in your presence or can it just be anywhere?
No, it can be anywhere. In fact, the guy who empirically discovered this was Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. Isn't that a great name? So in the mid-1800s. And he would do this by mail. People would mail him prayer requests, and he would do the mental work himself and send back a note that it was done, but they'd already know because they'd already gotten better. So
they had the result already.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this oneness thing it's not something we turn on and off. If there's one intelligence, one creative power, one process, one love unfolding, then it doesn't matter where it gets the idea that I'm okay. As long as the idea gets in there that I'm okay and I'm not objecting to it, I'm not disbelieving it, I'm not bringing doubt into the equation, the transformation can be instantaneous and it can happen anywhere. We've seen anywhere in the world. I imagine it could be anywhere in the universe, although we haven't been that many other places to be able to report back.
Yeah, you haven't. Maybe I have.
Maybe you have. I don't know. What's going on in Alpha Centauri? And what are the real estate
at least
values
you know.
there?
At least you know that planet. That's like start. I've been watching Cosmic Disclosure. So, so that's great. So, since we segued into your book, do you want to tell us anything else about the book? Like when people get it, what are they going to find? Is it like a workbook? Help us describe your book for us?
It is.
Yeah, grab it.
Always right there in a podcast.
Yeah, okay, practical prayer. Wait, let me see that cover. That's the universe.
For real results.
Look, it looks like my background.
Cool. Yes, it does. And it's got the.
Is that the Fibonacci circle?
Yep, that's a Fibonacci sequence, and represented there. And it's about our connection with the infinite. It's about 100 pages, and like I say, there are 40 sample prayers in there. A couple of them are kind of fun, and it's got. If you learn about spiritual mind treatment from the folks who have been doing it in the religious science method, then what they'll do is they'll number the steps. So it's 1 through 5, except some of the people say there are 7 steps, so it's 1 through 7. So 1 and 2 and 3 are always the same, but if you have to do a 4 and 5 in this one, then the other one becomes 6 or 7. So we made icons.
Oh, cute.
So the gratitude step is always the gratitude step. And there's a shortcut for it, RUR2GR, are you ready to get results? And that's the mnemonic for what the steps are. And the material in the front and the back of the book kind of describe, here's how it works, and then here's the specifics of the technique. And the middle of the book is packed with 40 sample prayers. And they are prayers that are written in the first person. So if I am going to be going in for a surgical procedure, then I can read the prayer for a successful surgical procedure. And if I have any specifics, I can put it into the space that's left blank there, about then basically to have my own affirmation. And they're on health and wealth and relationships and work and creativity and spirituality in different categories. And there's usually one that will apply to whatever somebody's going to be praying for. So it's very much a practical book. It's a handbook rather than a workbook, because you can keep it nearby and use the prayers whenever are appropriate.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It sounds like a nightstand book that
Yeah.
you wake up and flip to what you want to pray about for that day and use it.
Yeah.
So did you come up with all the wording on your own for the prayers?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wrote the prayers. A friend of mine who's a very accomplished designer came up with the Fibonacci sequence and how that's going to get used, and also the icons. There are a couple of fun prayers in there. One of them is, there's an invocation, an opening prayer for a perfect gathering or meeting. And there are two versions of it. One is a God prayer where it uses all the spiritual language, it talks about God, infinite creative power, and the rest of that. And the other one is a stealth prayer where it substitutes the language without actually making it sound like it's a prayer. And I have started business meetings with that or something very similar to it because, we're here together and we all have a shared purpose. We're here for this one common experience of moving our company forward, moving this project forward, and being connected together in a way that brings goodness into the world. So this meeting is a perfect opportunity for that goodness to be unfolding. All the ideas are coming forward. Everybody gets heard. There's nobody who gets rejected. This is the opportunity for success happening right now. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's here and for the way that this meeting is coming about. Thank you for being here. And that was the 7 steps in a practical prayer without sounding like a prayer. And it's fun when I do that. And other people have reported back that they've used that technique in business meetings. And people afterwards say, that was the best meeting. Wow, we got so much done. And Janice, who's usually such a pain in the ass, didn't say anything and was actually on board with the rest of this.
Yeah, or we came up with all these great ideas in our marketing meeting.
Yeah,
it was flowing.
A great meeting, and everybody, and everybody had an agenda coming in. For some reason, everybody got heard, and we wound up coming up with an idea that's okay for everyone.
Or like we negotiated a deal. We walked out of there happy. Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, so we're going to continue to talk about all the little things, the other things that you do, but I want to prepare you on the fly. We haven't discussed this, but I want you to think of one of those prayers we can end the podcast with so we can create a positive effect of this episode so that it goes out into the world and affects people and lets them know about how this tool can definitely help and contribute to their lives. So while we're talking about your other stuff, I want you to think about what's the right prayer for us to go through and do it for your episode about this. Okay, we'll do it at the end. Okay,
Sure,
we'll do the prayer at the end. All right. So can we move on from the book?
Yeah, and I'm just going to tell you that you've naturally moved on from the book because there are a few other things that I've been doing that echo that. So I do a podcast called the Practical Prayer Podcast.
Oh, perfect.
And we end every episode with a practical prayer.
Oh, how do they find it? Where do they go to find your podcast? Is it on Apple and Spotify and everywhere?
It's on Apple and Spotify and Google and all the rest, everywhere you can normally find
your
podcasts.
Audible, all that.
Yeah, if you search for prayer, you'll never find it because everybody thinks they know how to do prayer. But if you search for Marchiony, Marchiony, there's only a few podcasts with a Marchiony on them.
Okay.
And you can also go to to my website, which is bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, and it's linked from there and so forth.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me any more about the podcast? Like, who do you have on there? Is it just you?
It's me and a co-host.
Okay, so do y'all have guests?
Nope.
Okay, so y'all are just talking to help inspire others.
It's an interesting process because I was on the radio for about 10 years in an earlier career. And somebody told me after I got into ministry, oh, you should have a podcast. And I had this arrogant attitude of, I don't need a podcast. If somebody wants me to talk for an hour, they should at least build a tower and put a transmitter at the bottom of it and have me be the only one who can use it for an hour. But I got over that. And then thinking about how was I going to do a podcast talking about practical prayer. And I could think of maybe a dozen episodes worth of material. Because I think that the teaching and the practical prayer process and oneness is pretty simple. There's a lot of different nuanced pieces to it. And then, by a circuitous route, I got introduced to Carol, who is my podcast co-host, and she had discovered this New Thought teaching after she spent 35 years as a minister in 3 different Christian denominations. And so she basically asks a question, and we talk about it for the episode. And we just recorded episode number 190, because there's no limit to the questions that people who think God is out there and has to be convinced to do us a favor is going to not believe that it can be this simple. So that's what the Practical Prayer Podcast is about. It's about changing context.
Wow. Wait. So let me see if I understand this correctly. If I am of a traditional religious background, but I'm feeling drawn to a more open, New Thought way, should I listen to y'all's conversations to help me understand what I'm feeling?
Yeah. For anybody who has ever gotten the impression that their prayer shouldn't be so convoluted, that you shouldn't identify some middleman who you can ask for a gift from, and then maybe if you've done enough good stuff for that to satisfy the middleman, then you deserve it and you're going to get whatever it is that you're asking for.
Yeah.
For anybody who's dealing with that, who's willing to make the transformation of turning away from the God out there who's maybe going to do me a favor or maybe not, and connect with the divine power and presence within, this is for you.
Right.
And I will give you the warning that what people find the most challenging is giving up blame. Because it's really easy if you're praying to a God outside and God's answer can be yes or no or later. Then when you don't get what you're praying for, it's not your fault. And in New Thought,
and it's so unempowering, right? You have no power over that. It's like a release.
Well, yeah, but if there are people, I want to have this loving relationship and I don't have it, and it's because God doesn't want me to have a relationship. To acknowledge that my life is the outpicturing or the result of everything I believe, then I believe that I don't deserve the relationship. Well, I got to look at myself. Ooh, that's a lot of work. Right. And people a lot of times use the term blame. Well, so I'm to blame for this. It's my fault. Well, it's your consciousness. It's your belief system. There's nothing wrong with it. You created the experience that you're having. You get to create a different one, but you need to own it first. So it's not easy. So people who are interested in going through that transformational process, the podcast is just perfect for them.
Yeah. It's funny because, well, it's not funny, but me and my family grew up, my sisters grew up Baptist, and one of them, and she, is comfortable with me saying this, but she went very fundamental Baptist when I started to go open-minded and learning new things. And now, I used to sit there and go, man, I wish my sister could hear and learn what I'm hearing and learning. And then over time, she's caught up to my understanding. So now just what I wanted to manifest was to have a relationship with my sisters where I could talk about the stuff so we get to talk all the time about like what we hear and what we learn and question. And it's such a neat thing because so many family members a lot of times are separated from being able to connect on that same level, because not everybody kind of grows and evolves and changes at the same pace. So I feel so grateful and lucky that I was able to create that in my family.
Yeah, it's wonderful. That is
I know. And I had another thought while you were talking about asking you. So now let's go ahead and get everybody kind of familiar with the fact that you created a spiritual center, but it's online. You don't have to be in Philly, even though it's called New Thought Philly, because it's a online ministry, right? So tell us about that.
It actually started as an in-person ministry, and it was founded in 2011. And we're church in a box, and we were at a community center and a theater, and then we had digs for 5 years on the campus at University of Pennsylvania in their Christian Association house, and wanted to go online, but we couldn't because the network at Penn wouldn't let us podcast from there, or broadcast, or live stream, or so technology. It was technology. And then the pandemic came along, and we got kicked out. And since I have a strong background in tech, we were online on Zoom the following Sunday, and never missed a beat. And we had already had a meetup group. And what happened was the Philly Spiritual Adventures meetup group started getting bigger and bigger. And we started doing it also when the pandemic lockdowns began. We started doing daily online meditations because that was all there was. It was on Zoom. And we're still doing those a dozen times a week. There's a Zoom meditation. Every Sunday we do a Sunday celebration with, it's New Thought Church. It's got live music, and it's got meditation, and it's got prayer, and we light candles, and there's some ritual, there's an inspirational talk, and all the stuff that would seem like church but is not church. And we are always online, and once a month now we are also in person, so we're hybrid. We're at a theater in East Falls, which is a section of Philadelphia. And we are also have the hybrid presence because our geographic footprint got huge. We have people who are participating, regulars who are in Los Angeles and London. We had a board member who's in New Orleans, and a practitioner in Milwaukee, and students in Durham, North Carolina. And so people are spread all over the place. And some of the board members said, well, we want to get together in person every Sunday. And the remote people said, then we don't get to go. So we're kind of working out what it means to be a hybrid organization and meet the needs of the people in a completely different context than it's been. And it seems to be working so far. There are some things that you can't do online that are really helpful to do in person. Hearing people laugh at your jokes is one of them. Side conversations is another. Trust falls. Can't do trust falls online. Haven't figured out a way to do that. But a lot of the other stuff we can.
That's exciting. So how can you say, like, how many people, you said you were growing, like how many people actually get on your Zooms?
Usually on a Sunday, there's 20, 25 people who get on the Zoom. The daily meditations, it's usually a half dozen. Sometimes there are 15 or 20 who do those. Once a week, we share the evening meditation with our friends at Anton, the affiliated New Thought Network. So that's a slightly larger population. 3 mornings a week. I'm a teacher on Insight Timer, so we simulcast the morning meditation on Insight Timer. There's a half a dozen people on the Zoom, and then another 30 or 40 on Insight Timer.
I love that, because for people who want to feel like they're making a difference, I mean, for those 30 people, it matters, that you show up and do it. And as we do more and more communications like this one and get the word out, more and more people who are maybe remote, who don't know where to find somebody, they can find you and connect with you and decide they want to be a part of your community, even though they're in, New Mexico or something, out in the middle of nowhere. So, question, how do people connect with you?
The easy way to do it is to Google New Thought Philly. You don't even know how to spell Philadelphia. New Thought Philly will find the New Thought Philadelphia website, which is at newthoughtphilly.org. It'll find New Thought Philly and our meetup group, which is Philly Spiritual Adventures. And there are over 2,000 people who are in the meetup at this point. And from there, you can find the other places that we show up, links to the Zoom meetings and schedules for the meditations. You'll find me on Insight Timer, probably not through New Thought Philly. But once you get to the website, you can find everything else from there.
Have you ever had speakers or guest speakers on your?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay.
In fact, when we
Good.
founded New Thought Philadelphia, I had there was a co-founder, my co-spiritual director, who stepped down in 2020. So he and I used to take turns, and I love to have guest speakers because I get tired of hearing myself. I can't imagine that other people do as well.
Well, at
So,
least you got a radio voice.
well, thank you.
Okay, so what have we not covered that you want to cover?
The two things that I want to cover, one of them is God calls. And you'll say, well, you didn't mention anything about that at all. So I'm in a mastermind prayer group, and probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago at this point, members of the group started just calling each other, and you'd see, oh, it's a person from my mastermind group calling, and they would just start talking. You are a bright light of God's love. I'm so grateful to have you in my life and have you in the world. And you don't say anything. You don't even need to say thank you. It's just great to hear from you, and you hang up. And
I love that.
yeah, and that was just a practice that we were doing. And I started doing recorded God calls, where it's basically if you were to take a Sunday sermon and whittle it down to 30 seconds, and that's basically what happens when a minister used to be a top 40 radio DJ, is I can do a sermon in 30 seconds.
Soundbite.
Exactly. And it's got the full story. So that's what a God call is. And it goes out on a voice broadcast. So people subscribe to God calls, and they show up on the phone 4 times a week. It's just random time. Phone rings. You answer it. It's Bill. Gives you an inspirational message for 30 seconds. And if you've been around this teaching for a while, you know that the message that you're looking for shows up at exactly the right time. So whether it's live or it's voicemail, when you listen to it, it's like, oh, that's what I needed to hear. So that's God calls.
Are you
Godcalls.org.
using like Phone Tree for that? What are you using for that?
I'm using one called Call 'em All, or I think they changed their name to Text 'em All when texting became fashionable.
Does it cost anything to join that?
Yeah, it's like $5.95 a month.
Okay.
There's a 2-week free trial. So
Okay.
I'm sure as soon as this podcast episode airs, there's going to be a flurry of people with their 2-week free trial.
I want it. Okay.
And no obligation to continue. Even if
Yeah.
somebody cancels on day 13, you don't have to pay again. It's fine.
I love that. We had something at Unity called Unity Friends, and they were live, and they would call you. And sometimes I would be busy and couldn't answer. And so she would just leave a positive, prayer or message. And it's the same thing. It's nice to get. It's nice to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a reminder that there's something bigger going on. I could be having a great day, and here's this reminder. Here's a God call coming in telling me how great my life can be. It's like, he sure is. Or I could be having a crappy day, and it's like, oh, I wonder if this day can this day get any better somehow. Oh, here's a God call. Well, maybe it's going to turn my ship in that better direction for a second.
Okay. What was the second thing you wanted to tell us?
The second thing that I wanted.
You said there were 2 things that we hadn't covered.
I'm sure there were 2 things. What was the second thing that I wanted to cover?
Well, you do speaking engagements, right? People can hire you.
And I also do healing prayer for people. That's one of the big things about that makes practical prayer and spiritual mind treatment different. And that was something that took me a long time to find out as well, is there are only a few areas where you can hire a professional to do the prayer for you. And in a spiritual counseling and a practical prayer session, what I'll do is get together with a client. It'll seem a lot like the sort of intake that you would do with a therapist, but it's not. All I want to do is find out what it is that you want to be experiencing, and then we'll dig into your belief system and get an understanding of why it is that you're not experiencing it now. And I'll ask some probing questions, and I'll do some challenging, inquiries like, well, is it possible that this could happen? And then we end with a prayer. And
how long is that? Like the
session?
amount of time?
Usually do an hour.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I can do them short. You know what? By the time somebody shows up wanting to talk to me about their prayer, they've tried a lot of other stuff and it hasn't worked. So we're going to take a little bit of time to unpack what's going on. And because if somebody comes to me and says, I'm having surgery next week and I just like a prayer that the surgery comes out okay. It's like, well, I can do that. If it's like, I've got this chronic pain and it's always been hurting me and I'd love to have it go away.
Yeah,
that's
deeper.
Different than the surgery. Okay,
Yeah.
well, where's that coming from? What's the belief behind that? Is there something that we need to clear in order to make that work?
I
So
love that. I love that. That's going to be desirable for a lot of people. A lot of people who may not have a spiritual center might need someone to pray for them for any amount of reason. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
And
So
and,
in
and all the info for that is on the website at bethelight.com. That's the one with the hyphens,
with the hyphens, yeah, B
be-the-light.com.
hyphen the hyphen light dot.
the-light.com. Yep.
Okay. So in wrapping up, are you going to read it? How long did the prayers last?
How
Like
long
how
do you
long
want it
did
to
it?
be?
Well, only because I have that other podcast at 8 minutes. So I'm just
Oh,
trying to confirm how long it takes to do a prayer.
I can do a prayer in 10 seconds, but I won't. This one will be a couple minutes.
Well, I thought you were going to do one from your book.
You wanted one that this episode has a helpful effect on the world. That's kind of custom.
That's awesome. Okay, well, and let's make it fly out there to all the people that need to hear it and
You can
can
do
get
that.
value from it. So before we do that, because what I'm going to get you to do is do the prayer and we're going to be quiet. And then I'm going to say quietly, thank you all for joining us. And then we're going to say goodbye. We're not going to get all rowdy again after your prayer. But let me ask you, have you told us everywhere people can find you, like your socials? Where do you have social? Do you have a YouTube channel? Like, where can people find you if they don't want to just go to your hyphenated website?
There's a Practical Prayer YouTube channel. You can find me there. New Thought Philadelphia has a YouTube channel where, among other things, all of our live streams are presented. We've got a Zoom that you can find. We've got a Meetup. There's an Instagram and a Facebook for New Thought Philadelphia. I keep on showing up. I'm everywhere.
You're all over.
I'm all over the place.
You're like oneness everywhere, all at
Google
once.
Marchiony. You will find me and the guy who invented the ice cream cone, who was my great-grandfather. But that's a whole different episode.
Okay. All right. So before we start your prayer, I want to say thank you for being on the Oneness Junkie podcast. And this was fun. It was great to visit with you again, as we did a couple of weeks ago for something else. And that's, I think, it. And I continue to get to know you better and be networked with you into our community that we're part of. So
Yeah.
It's great to have you.
Well, thank you. And it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, great. So are you good with doing a prayer and we close this out?
We will close with a prayer. I'll keep it to less than 2 minutes. And the purpose of the prayer is knowing that this episode has had a helpful effect on the world, and everyone who is listening to this prayer, everyone who is aware of this prayer, is uplifted by it. And just for fun, I'm going to count the steps of the prayer because there's a picture thing going on here. So we know that there's one divine power and presence, one love, one source. And it doesn't matter what our story of creation is. It doesn't matter if our story of creation is from the Bible. In the beginning there was darkness and void, and God said, let there be, and there was. Or if our story is the one about quantum physics and the Big Bang, and in the beginning there was the singularity, and then for some reason it began exploding, expanding, and revealing itself, unfolding into new things. It's the same story. That one power and presence is sharing itself as everything, as everyone, everywhere. And that includes me and each one listening to this prayer. We are each expressions of that one infinite creative power. And knowing that the divine power is within, I know that that light of love is shining through and as and for each of us in our own way. This episode is the opportunity for that light to shine, for that love to flow, for more good and uplift to show up in the world. There's nothing that stands in the way of it. That infinite creative power is always creating, and it's creating now, and I am so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for the good that's coming about. I'm grateful for the willingness of each one listening to participate in this creative process, to surrender even a little tiny bit of doubt, to let go of resistance that this good can possibly be unfolding, to open to it, to allow it, to participate in it. And that good is unfolding. And so with a deep feeling of thanks for all of this good, I speak this word and I release it into that creative law that creates everything. The same one that responded when the infinite said, let there be light, is responding to this word now. So I let it be. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you. In love and light and in our oneness. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.